this case really took a wild turn, all with the help of social media. So I want to bring on trial attorney and federal litigator Alexis Rosenberg. Alexis, thank you so much for joining me today. I want to get your take on this story. What are your thoughts about this murder suspect being arrested, all with the help of TikTok?
I mean, this is crazy how far, just somebody sitting in their house or wherever they are making a video, the impact that it had. It really is showing us that, TikTok in particular is very widespread and, it to solve crimes and find this guy that wasn't even in the same country.
And yeah, as you mentioned, the suspect was found hiding in Mexico. How do you think he managed to escape there?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I would assume that he probably crossed the border without, prior to, it being on the alert or some sort of notice or lockdown that he wasn't able to do so. I can only assume how he got across. I'm sure that's going to come out, though.
And do you think that by chance, and I'm just speculating here, if anyone had helped him, do you think that charges could be brought against them as far as either helping him escape there or even just kind of hiding him wherever he was while he was on the run?
Definitely, they could get charged with abating a fugitive, or an accessory after the fact. There's a number of things that they could be charged with. I it is likely that there was some sort of help to get him over there, and that might come out through phone records. But then again, the police probably had obtained some of those phone records when he was a fugitive, and they weren't able to make that connection. But with these burner phones now, it's very possible that it'll come out that he did in fact have assistance.
And are you surprised that Benjamin Williams was on the run for that amount of time, 3 years? I mean, to me, that's just a long time to be, on the run, being a fugitive and that sort. But as far as the investigation goes, why do you think, it took 3 years to find him? Again, we know now that it was through the help of TikTok that he was apprehended, but why do you think it took so long?
I think because he was able to get out of the country. They probably did not necessarily think that he had left the country. Maybe he was just hiding locally, but he was able to get out of the country. So that kind of adds an extra layer of difficulty, because, there's got to be coordination with the police department in that country. And as we know, the Mexican police aren't, as organized as, if I can say, as our police department. So you wouldn't have that collaboration as much. So that could be problematic as well. What's interesting though is how, what's going to come out is how was he surviving financially down there? Because you just brought up, was somebody aiding him down there? How was he getting money? Was he working down there? Did he have family down there? And we'll have to see, what comes out of this.
Yeah. And going over the case itself, it happened 3 years ago in July of 2021, but there was a particular level of gruesomeness to it. Williams is accused of killing the victim in front of her own children, and the two even had a child together. What do you think the motive was here? Or do you think that this was something he had planned out, or possibly it could have been a spur of the moment type of reaction? What do you make of this whole gruesomeness of shooting a woman who you have a child with in front of your child, and then just skating away to another country?
I mean, this was, like you said, this is just horrible. She was holding the infant in her hand when this happened. And then she had the 4-year-old in the back seat, and just the trauma that these children must have sustained, when this happened, and being present is horrible. What is also interesting is he didn't take the child. So that they had together. So we can only assume that the motivation wasn't some sort of child dispute going on, because if that was the case, he would have taken the child. The fact that he shot her in the face indicates that he is very violent. It seems like it's a crime of anger, and it was premeditated because he asked her to come there. But I'm not sure as to what the exact motive. That is such a great question. What was the exact motive? And then for her to meet him at the cemetery, I found to be a little odd as the meeting place to pick.
Yeah, I did too. Just an interesting kind of tidbit throughout all of this. If this case does go to trial, what could it be like going to trial in this case, especially since the defendant was on the run for so long? What defense do you expect Williams's attorneys to even use?
Well, he could say that he didn't do it. He could say it wasn't him. He was just vacationing in Mexico and didn't know everybody was looking for him. Uh, I mean, they're going to pull out whatever they can. They're going to probably dispute the DNA. We don't know yet how much, the actual DNA evidence that's at the scene. I don't know if they have actual video of him coming in and going, but those are all, it depends on how strong that type of evidence that they have, against him, as well as not that you need to prove motive at trial, but juries do like to hear, what the motive may be, like we were asking just sitting here. So, we really need to find out a little more about what exactly does the police have, other than the fact that he's the father of one of her children.
And then on the flip side, in your opinion, do you think it'll be crucial to the prosecution's case at all that Williams did flee the country? Does that show in any way an obvious admission of guilt?
But you can't really use that as an admission. That would be another charge, and that would definitely come in. And I think that, the jury, knowing that he fled, they're going to perceive that most likely the same way we perceive that. But it's not just a blanket free for all admission of guilt by him leaving the country.
And a lot of these cases, especially where the alleged murderer, gets away from the crime, that doesn't necessarily happen in a digital age. We have surveillance video, we all have cell phones at this point, and even with this added tidbit of using social media to find an alleged killer, what do you make of just the whole digital scape that we are going into? How important is that in our court system? And do you think that, this makes a difference at all in cases going forward, using things like social media to kind of capture killers in a way?
Well, for the prosecution, it's very good, but social media is being used even in civil cases. One of the things that they do as part of the discovery, let's say you're in a car accident, is they want your social media. They want to know what you have. Do you have Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is, so they can look when you're saying, "Oh, I've been hurt," for instance, and you're on a roller coaster going, down it. So it really is crucial, pretty much across the board. If we have a video of something happening, or we can track, text messages and things of that nature, that is very crucial evidence. In this particular case, I think that they're going to definitely bring in evidence, because I'm going to assume there were text messaging between them, where to meet, why I want to meet you, and then other exchanges of information that are going to come in at this trial.
And the victim's children were very young when this had happened, but how important of a role could they play into the case? Obviously, I know it's always a dicey situation dealing with children, but just them recounting, potentially what had happened, or even just speaking with children who had witnessed such a horrific crime. What do you make of just how they can also be used to help bring this case about through our court system, if they can at all?
So the child they had together was only, I believe, 4 months old at the time. So that child, I don't believe, is going to be able to provide any testimony, other than maybe if he's convicted at sentencing, about the impact of growing up without a mother. Because now he would only be, it was 3 years, he would be three, currently. The older child, the 4-year-old, potentially could come into court. It is, like you said, dicey, because the child obviously is very traumatic. So it's a balance. Do we really need to, in essence, re-traumatize him in order to get this conviction? So I don't necessarily foresee that they will have the then 4-year-old testify during the trial. It is an option, but it is definitely a balancing act as to whether you want to put a child and re-traumatize them on the stand.
Yeah, just a horrible case, and I can't even imagine, what her children are going through, or even what the victim's family is going through. But I'm hoping that with some sort of sense of feeling like there has been justice served down the line, maybe that can kind of help with coming to a conclusion in all of this. Alexis, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Before we sign you off, though, where does the case go next from here?
Well, I mean, we're gonna have a little while. He's been brought back to Mexico, and then they're gonna end up having, the pretrial, the arraignments, and all of those things. So, since he is incarcerated, and as long as his team doesn't take any continuances, it should pretty much go to trial fairly quickly. But his defense team may start taking continuances, and it may take a little longer to go to trial.
And do you expect it to go to trial, or do you think that the defendant in this case could plead out? Or do you think prosecutors could even offer him a plea deal?
The prosecutors, and especially in Florida, they rely on, not that the family ultimately has the decision, they don't, but they do listen to what the family's position is. It's going to depend on the strength of the case, what evidence that they have. But yeah, most likely they're going to offer him some sort of plea. Whether he's going to take it, that's going to ultimately be the decision, of the defendant.
All right, Alexis, again, thank you so much for your time and insight into this case. I really appreciate it.